Hey everybody, welcome back to Baseline Farms. My name is Jade. So I wanted to give you a quick tour as to what is happening in our 2023 summer garden. So I started a lot of our plants from seed. There's only a handful of plants that I started, that I bought from the nursery. But I wanted to show you what seeds I've started, what seeds that are doing really good, which everything's doing super good. Everything that I planted is doing really well. I haven't had any kind of pest problems, just a minor here and there, but I'm sure that's just the name of the game, especially when you're not using any kind of pesticides. We did have a bunch of aphids early in the season that took out a bunch of Brussels sprouts, some cauliflower, cabbage, and a couple broccoli. But other than that, that's pretty much all that we've had so far. So that's a good thing. So now let me just share with you what kind of seeds I've started and how everything's growing. So first off, let's start off in this garden bed right over here. Alright, so over here in this garden bed, this is where I had a bunch of green onion and some yellow onion. I thought I planted a bunch of red onion, but I didn't. My dad brought me over some onion sets, and I thought they were onion sets, but they were not onion sets. They were just a bunch of green onion that I popped in here, and I got a bunch of green onion from them. So what I decided to do was amend this bed and plant some red onion. So I started these onions. These are from seed. They're called So Easy by Fairy Morse. You see that? And this one they're going to germinate in 10 to 20 days, and this is a 65-day harvest. So in 65 days, we should have some red onion, and that should be about October. So I cannot wait to harvest some of these red onions to see how they taste, because all the other onions that I've harvested are so delicious. Matter of fact, I just made my first batch of cold pickles. I'm still kind of working on a recipe, so as soon as I get that recipe nailed down, then I'll go ahead and give that to you. But right now, I'm kind of practicing testing out. I'm testing out a few recipes, because I had a recipe for some cold pickles, and then I lost it. I have no idea what happened to it. So now I'm just kind of playing around with it and certain ingredients. But this is how this garden bed is doing. Now I do have some yellow onions right over here, and how you know when the onions are ready is when the necks are weak. So if the neck is kind of flopped over like that, then that's when they're ready. So these are still got a little bit of ways to go. They're not quite, floppy, and so we'll just wait to harvest those. But let me share with you what else is happening in all the other garden beds. All right, so over here we have a bunch of peppers. So I started some peppers from seed, and I actually bought a couple peppers from the nursery. So this one right here is a sweet bell pepper. So I have a couple green bell pepper right over here. And then right next to it, I have a sweet shishito pepper. So I have 3 of those. And then next to that one over here, let me show you. And then let's see, this one is a purple bell pepper. So I have 2 of those. And look at all these purple bell pepper right here. So I've harvested a total of 6 purple bell pepper just from one plant, so that is amazing. And then this is our cayenne pepper, and we have so many. Look at that. Let me give you a really good look. Look at that. So this cayenne pepper and the purple bell pepper I bought from the nursery. This one, these 4 plants right in here. And then these are the shishito peppers. Look how good they're doing. And these ones I started from seed in the trailer, but they're doing so good. Look at that. So I'm so pleased at how this garden bed on this side is doing. So now let me go ahead and show you what's happening on this side. Now on this side we have a bunch of San Marzanos, and they're doing so good. We have so many clusters of tomatoes. Let me see. Do you see that? Now when I planted these tomatoes, and they were growing so fast that I completely forgot to push them onto the opposite side of the fence. So they're on the wrong side of the fence, and but that's okay. So over here on this side, my goodness, they sure did grow fast. I did not realize how fast they're growing. So over here on this side, look at all these San Marzanos. So this is an heirloom variety, and they're doing so good. So many. Look how good they're doing. Look at that. I'm so pleased at how these tomatoes are growing. They're doing so well. Well, I also forgot to show you that in between the San Marzanos and the peppers, I have a bunch of this holy basil. Now my neighbor across the way, she actually got me this six-pack of holy basil, which I feel like I need to trim down because they are super long, and I definitely feel like I could harvest some of these. So that is how these are doing, the holy basil, the peppers, the tomatoes. So now let me go ahead and show you the beans. Here are the jade beans. So these jade beans are doing so well. Now this seed is by Seed Exchange, and I am so pleased. I've harvested quite a few beans from this plant. Let me see, I know, look at this one. This one's ready to be harvested. I could probably harvest a few more. So yeah, there are so many. There's so many beans on this plant. I am so happy with the way this plant turned out. I thought I was going to have to plant some more seeds because this is my first time ever growing this type of bean, and I am so pleased with how many beans we're getting. So this is so exciting. Now I did start some more beans in some of the garden beds, so let's just show you what else is happening in this particular garden bed, because this one has some cucumbers also. Now I feel like for the beans I could probably put one of those cages around it and kind of keep them so that way they're not flopped over. Now it's called a bush variety, and it says that it doesn't need any trellising or anything like that, but I think in order to keep them more organized so that the plant doesn't just flop over, I think I could put some cages around it. So maybe when I grow the new plants, I'll be mindful for that. Okay, so over here we have our cucumber, and our cucumber is doing so well. I have harvested so many Katrina cucumbers from this little cucumber area, and it's slowly but surely trellising over this trellis. I have had to help it using some jute twine and kind of just pushing it towards that direction. But for the most part, it is doing so well. I am so pleased with this variety of cucumber. I've never grown this variety before, and when I purchased the seeds from Johnny Selected Seeds, it said on the package that it is a greenhouse variety. I don't have a greenhouse, so I figured I'm going to try it outside, see how it does, and it is doing so well. So I can only imagine how well it does in a greenhouse if it does this good outside. And this is how everything's doing in the 100-degree weather, because we did have a few days of over 100 degrees, and the garden is doing phenomenal. I am so pleased at how the garden is doing. Now, when I amended these beds, I added some slow release fertilizer along with a couple bags of some potting soil. So I just kind of bought a couple bags because we didn't really need a whole bunch of soil. So I figured there was no reason for John to order a load of mushroom compost when we really didn't need that much. So I just grabbed a few bags of potting soil from our local nursery and just kind of amended the soil that way to the beds that needed it. But all of the beds got some slow release fertilizer for sure, because I know that last season, you know, from what my understanding is as a beginner gardener, is that you need to amend all of your beds. You need to amend the soil and work it just a little bit to get all the nutrients back in it before you start your new cycle of plants. So that's what I did for all of the garden beds. And this is how everything's doing. Now, when I transplanted the seedlings into the garden bed, when I dug the hole, I did put some potting soil into the hole. I don't know if you need to do that, but that's what I do for all of my plants, just to give them a little boost of, just a little boost. So yeah, this is how it's doing. And I am just so excited. I am so pleased. The skin of the Katrina cucumber tastes so good. It's not bitter, it's not tough. I'm just really thrilled with this Katrina cucumber. So let me show you what else is happening. Okay, so over here in this garden bed, I have some bronze torch. Now I forgot if these ones were by Johnny Selected Seeds or if these were by Lake Valley. I think they're by Johnny Selected Seeds, but these are doing so good. Now I have a little sucker right here. Now this wasn't a sucker. This was what was it? This was a volunteer. Yeah. So when one of the garden beds, one tomato plant just started popping up, and it looks like it might be aroma tomatoes. So that's so exciting that that we got a tomato plant. You know, even with the harsh winter that we had and all the just everything, this seed decided to grow right on its own. So that is so exciting, and it's doing so well. It's doing extremely. It's this one right here. But let me show you how the other ones are doing. Look at how good they're doing. Look at all those clusters of tomatoes. Look at that. These plants are doing so well. Everything's doing so good. So on the other side of the tomatoes, I started some blue lake beans. So I just did a whole row of blue lake beans, and there's 5 of them right in here. And yeah, I'm just gonna see what we can get. Now, I was debating whether or not I was going to plant another row of blue lake beans, and I'm still debating whether I want to do that or not, because I really like them. I think they'll be so good to be able to freeze. Now, I heard you have to blanch them, which means that you had to put them in hot boiling water for a few seconds or a few minutes, and then pop them out, put them in ice water, and then you can freeze them that way. So I'm thinking about planting some more beans, and yeah, I think we still have time in the season to do that. We have a pretty long season here in Zone 9B. So these are how the blue lake beans are doing. And I'm thinking about doing another succession of blue lake beans or saving that space for garlic. So many possibilities. So I'm still not 100% sure yet. But this is how it's doing so far. And I have added mulch onto the beds that have plants growing. So let me show you what's happening in the other garden bed. No, kitty. Now over here we have our lemongrass, and look how good it's doing despite the haircut that I gave it, because I really chopped it down. I had no idea what I was doing, but it looked so just unruly, and I decided to give it a good cut, and so I cut it all back, and it was like cut down to here, and look at that. It has made a full comeback. Look how big that is. Isn't that amazing? Oh, I am so happy with this lemongrass. It is just an amazing plant to have. It's so resilient. It can handle all kinds of weather. It went through the cold, it went through the heat, and it is just doing phenomenal. So I am so happy and pleased with this lemongrass. It is an amazing plant to have in your garden. So over here in this garden bed, this is where I have a bunch of artichokes. I had some spinach, some turnips, some, what else? Carrots, celery, some Jerusalem artichokes, some nasturtiums. So I packed this garden bed full of things, and our garden beds are 4x8. So they're good size, but they're not ginormous or anything. So they're good size though. So that's what I packed in this garden bed. Now, I had no idea that this is how big the artichokes plants were gonna get. So I did plant a bunch of spinach underneath them that ended up getting eaten out by snails because I had a bit of a snail problem. So I since combated all the snails. It doesn't look like I have any more snail problems. And yeah, I've cleaned out all of the spinach that was planted in here. I've harvested all of the carrots. Now when I harvested the carrots, or when I planted the carrots, I planted them really thick, and at first I thought I was going to go out there and thin them out, but then I just didn't have any time to do it, so I just allowed them to grow really thick. And then when I harvested them just recently, right before the heat, because my understanding is that the carrots don't like hot weather, and when it does get hot, it gets a little tough. The carrot gets a little tough, a little stringy. It's hard. It's just tough. So I decided to harvest all the carrots early, and they ended up being tiny little baby carrots, which was really fun to have because I definitely like snacking on those small little baby carrots instead of those big carrots. The big carrots I do like to use for like stews and things like that, and yes, you can use the baby carrots for the same thing. But I think I'm going to do a couple rows like that in the future of a bunch of, like sow the seeds really thick and then harvest the carrots when they're super young and small, because they are so delicious and tender. Oh, so flavorful. So yeah, I had some carrots in here, some turnips, and everything grew really, really well except for the spinach, because I think it was just so, there was just so much and it wasn't getting any sun, and of course the snails got to it before I did. So that is how this bed is doing. And then over here behind me we have these Jerusalem artichokes right here, these tall plants. Now these Jerusalem artichokes, I had no idea. I popped the root into the soil. I did not know what it was going to be like, and when I pulled them out, I didn't pull out all of the bulbs. So these are the remnants of the bulbs that were left in the garden bed. So hopefully I'll collect all of the bulbs this year so we don't have this issue again. But it's okay. They're actually pretty good. I wasn't able to use a lot of them because I had no idea that you weren't supposed to wash them before you cure them. And I gave them a good washing, washed all the dirt off, and then before you know it, they all turned bad. So that's good to know, to not wash the ginger or the Jerusalem artichokes or anything like that. Just let them cure and dry, and then you can use them. So let me show you what else is happening. All right, so over here we have our blackberry bush. Now I'm not too sure what is going on with our blackberry bush. I have since I've noticed this problem, I have fertilized it with some berry tone, and so far so good. But if you can see, there was a bunch of berries starting to develop right in here, and then they just all of a sudden started all dying off. They just started drying up and dying. And then as soon as I fertilized it, all of a sudden we started getting some new growth right in here, if you could see that. So we started getting a bunch of new growth, and I have some berries growing on the other side also. There's some berries growing, but that's how these are doing. So far so good. So I'm not too sure if it was the lack of fertilizer or what the problem was, but they were dying off, and then as soon as I fertilized it, some new growth started popping up and I started getting some more blackberries. So I'm hoping that's the problem, and I'm hoping that I solved the problem by fertilizing with that berry tone. But now let me go ahead and show you what is going on in this garden bed right here. All right, so over here in this garden bed, I have some basil growing. Now I was at my local supermarket, and they had this basil in the produce department for only $1.50. So I bought 3 of them, and I just plopped them here right in the garden. So I thought that is so cool. Just for $1.50, I got 3 basil plants for $1.50 each. That is such a good deal. I was so happy with that. So now I also have another artichoke at the very end of the garden bed right over there. And then on this side, I have a bunch of Roma tomatoes by Lake Valley Seed Company, and they're doing so good. So good. So these tomatoes, this is my second succession of tomatoes. So when I started my first batch of tomatoes, a couple weeks later, I started some more seeds and I started another batch of tomatoes. So these are the Roma tomatoes by Lake Valley Seed Company, and they're doing so good. They are now getting tall enough where I could almost start trellising them up this trellis, but this is how they're doing. So far so good. Okay, so here is my arch trellis. As you can see, there's nothing climbing on it because the avalanche peas are super tiny. Look at that. They're so small that they haven't even reached halfway up the trellis. So what I ended up doing was I started some more cucumber seeds right in this little area of the garden bed. So let me show you which seeds I started. So when I put up this trellis, I was really hoping that I was gonna get a bunch of stuff trellising over the top. I mean, we're still early, we're just in July, the early week of July. Matter of fact, we're in July 6th. So yeah, so I started these seeds not too long ago, probably about 5 or 6 days ago, and they're already popping up. And these are the Suyo cucumbers by Johnny Selected Seeds. So these are a longer cucumber, and I believe they are they can tolerate the heat really well. So I'm excited to see how these are gonna do, and if I'm finally gonna get a nice, beautiful green trellis. So I'm so excited. I cannot wait to see how these are gonna look on this little arch trellis that I put up. All right, so here are the avalanche peas. He's such a good boy. And yeah, they're just not doing too well. Yeah, this is how they're doing. This is as far as they've gotten. They haven't really gotten any taller than this. Now they're working their way up, so I'm not going to pull them out quite yet because like I said, we're still early in the season. It's only July 6th, so I'm still going to give them a chance, but they're just not producing as much as I thought they were going to produce, and they're just so wild. If you could see that, look how wild they are. Like all of their tendrils are just so intertwined with one another. It's just crazy. But that's how far they have gotten so far. Not that tall up the trellis, but that's okay. I have collected a few of these peas, but not that many. Not as many as I thought I was going to collect. So I only have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 plants over on this side of the trellis. And yeah, so that's how they're doing. I don't know if I'm going to plant these again on this type of trellis. I probably just put in a little, one of those tomato cages, and I think they'll just be fine just like that. But this is how the avalanche peas are doing. Okay, so in the same bed as the avalanche peas, I started some bush beans by Burpees. And so far, I have about 4 of them popping up, so that's exciting. And I started those before the heat, so about, I want to say 5 to 6 days ago is when I started these bush beans. So I'm excited to see how they're going to turn out. And then in the front, right over here, not in the front, in the back part of the garden bed, I have a bunch of sunflowers. Now when John's niece and nephew were out, his niece was out here with me, and we decided to plant some sunflowers. So she asked me if she could plant some seeds, and I said of course. So she planted a whole row of sunflowers all down this area. So I cannot wait to see how they're gonna do, because they are getting so big already. Look how big they're getting. I cannot wait. I wish I remember what variety these were, but I'm not too sure. I hope it's a multicolor, because that is gonna be so beautiful. So we have some cilantro right here that I don't know how the seed got here, but I'm just allowing it to go to seed. And then we have a bunch of dill right over here that I just allowed to go to flower and go to seed. So that way we could just have a bunch of dill growing in this area, because that would be so nice. And then we could just use that for pickles or whatever we want them for. And so yeah, that is so exciting. And you can still eat the dill even after it flowers. I've tried it. Oh, it smells so good. I love the smell of it. So I'm so excited that this is my first year ever planting dill. I wish I started some dill last year, and I didn't, so that's exciting. So this is the first year that I actually used our own dill, our own garlic, our own pickles, and our own onions to pickle the cucumbers. So I am so stinking excited about that. All right, so here is our raspberry bush, and this is how it's doing. It hasn't produced any raspberries. Now it does have a lot of new growth, and I did fertilize it with some berry tone. So I'm not too sure what is wrong with it. It could be the heat, because we had that, 100-degree weather a few days in a row, so it could be that. And thank goodness today is nice and cool. It's supposed to be up in the 90s today, but it has been very cool in the morning time. Cool enough so I had to wear a jacket, which that has been so nice. So thank goodness for that. But this is how the raspberry bush is doing. No raspberries yet, but I'm hoping that we get some eventually, because it's still early in the season. But I do have these artichokes that are doing really well. Look at that. Some artichokes right in here that I just planted right into the garden just sporadically. So those are doing so good. All right, so over here in this garden bed, I have a bunch of cilantro growing. And you can still eat it, even if it flowers and goes to seed, you can still eat it. It's a little bitter, but you can still taste the cilantro taste. So I thought this would be so fun, because I have so many garden beds, that if I dedicate a couple of beds, one for dill, just a portion of it, and then one for some cilantro. So I think that would be so cool, just to have a whole bunch of cilantro already growing here and not have to plant any. So that is so exciting, and I cannot wait to see how this turns out. Over here on the other side of the cilantro, we have a bunch of sun golds, and they are doing so well. I've just been slowly trellising them up, and they are doing so good. Last year when I had a bunch of sun golds, Oh my goodness, they grew so massive and they were leaning on one another. It was just so unruly. So I am so pleased at how everything is turning out right now in this garden bed. So in this garden bed, I have a bunch of artichokes. I have 4 artichoke plants growing in here. I have a total of 10 artichoke plants growing in the whole entire garden. So we're gonna have a ton of artichokes because look at this. We already have some artichokes growing on this one as well. So that is so exciting to see how this artichokes, or all these artichokes are gonna do. And I haven't planted anything else on the other side of this garden bed. I'm thinking I'm gonna save that area for some garlic because I do want to plant a bunch of garlic in the fall. I believe I started all of my garlic last year in September. And I started 6 cloves of garlic. So I think, or 6 bulbs. So I started 6 bulbs, and that allowed me to have, I don't know, half a crate of garlic. So this year I'm hoping to plant double that, maybe triple that, and so that we could have a ton of garlic. So I can have enough garlic to give away, so I can have enough garlic just to have for throughout the year. Because the garlic that I did plant was not enough. So look at this sunflower. It's so huge. It's so beautiful. I love it. And it just self-seeded right here. This is exactly where I would probably plant a sunflower if I were to plant a sunflower, is right here on the corner of the beds. So that is so exciting to see this just randomly grow. And then over here we have all of our potatoes. These are our red potatoes and our purple potatoes. So far so good. The potatoes are looking really nice. This is my first year ever growing this variety of potatoes. I've never grown any potatoes before, so I'm excited to find out how they're going to turn out and what they look like. All right, so that is how this big garden's doing. It's doing so well. So I have since moved all of the plants that were in the center all along the edge of the fence with some watering trays. Just because when it was getting so hot, I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to keep on top of all of the plants. So that's why I moved them along the edge of the fence and then put a bunch of watering trays underneath there so that way they can all get a good amount of water during the heat. So now let me show you what's growing in the small garden. Okay, so over here in this garden, I have a bunch of melons. So all of the melons have been popping up. All of the pumpkins have been popping up. I have Illumina right here. We have 3 of them popping up. I have a sugar pie. Only 2 of them have popped up on this side. And then over here, I have a New England sugar pie. That is now. So now right here, we still have some yellow onions that are almost ready to go. And then we only have 1 sweet meat that's popping up and 1 butternut squash that's popped up. Now over here on this side, we have some of the Sarahs, and then we have a lily right here, melons. This is a Crenshaw right in here, and then right over here we have some cantaloupe. So that is what is happening in the small garden. So many things are happening and growing, and I cannot wait to share with you all the other things that are happening on the farm. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I definitely need to do another video and an update on what is happening as far as the animals go. So hopefully everyone enjoys this video. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.